And just like that, we're at our, dare I say, 7th? Is that right?
Cole? There you go.
Cole, is it 7th live stream?
It's a big day.
It's a huge day, and it's our first time ever where we woke up at 0 degrees in Cincinnati, and we flew to Austin, and just so we could do the live stream. We're not even anything going on here in Austin. We just wanted to come here just to have this amazing view behind us here. Check all that out in the city. I love Austin, Texas. My second home. I have been to this city more than anywhere else in the country. We flew out Sunday night to Cincinnati to see my good friends, the McKissicks. We got to see Linda and Jimmy and Anna and Press and go out and put on our one-day wealth workshop. That is a 6 to 7 hour event. It's my baby that I've spent 1 million hours and about a decade and a half putting together. And we got to share that with 200 people that were live all day. It's a foundational course, and it was absolutely amazing. But before we did that, I always try to do something fun with our crew that came out. So we had Sabrina, we had Cole, we had Andrew with us, and we decided to do an escape the room. So if you're just coming in, if you type in the chat, where are you from? I'd love to know what part of the country you're in. If it was as cold as Cincinnati, hopefully you have some people from Cincinnati on here because we talked about this at the event. But we got there. Every time we go on one of these trips, I try to do something really, really fun with the staff. This time we went out and did an escape the room, and it was 2 of our people's first time. Andrew, who runs our Be Wealthy Network, he says he's always got out of escape room 100% of the time, which I knew meant he's done 4. However, oh, there's Andrew. So Andrew there to sort of roasting you terrible time to get here. But Andrew literally must have never done one before. No, he'd actually done one, but I guess he does very, very simple ones. So we did it, and we did not get out because I have very strict rules when I do an escape the room that you cannot get more than 3 clues. I know they'll give you more clues, but absolutely not when we're taking them. And it took us 25 minutes before the 4 of us, being extremely stubborn, decided that we would get a clue, and then we wasted too much time. We didn't get out, but we had a blast. Paul Jameson recommended the Skyline. Is it Skyline?
Skyline Chili.
Skyline Chili, which seems it's a local favorite. Spaghetti, chili on top of the spaghetti. I like it so far. Kind of a sauce, kind of a very simple sauce in there. And then what I would call about 1.5 pounds of just straight cheese on the top of it.
Well, you have options.
With onion,
3-way or 5-way.
3-way or 4-way or 5-way, they might as well take 3 and 4 off the menu because I'm going to do level 5. I mean, if there was level 9, I would have gone to 9. I mean, I'm going to max it out. What's the highest level you can possibly go to? With Skyline Chili, it turns out it's 5. Everyone at level 5 except Cole because it's got a thing with cheese, and that's a whole conversation for another day. We're not going to get in. Cole, why can't you have cheese while we're on the subject? What is your deal with cheese?
It's great.
Cole's going to come back to us on why he can't have cheese. I don't know. Thank you. Caitlin says that's aggressive. So, all right, today we're going to talk about a number of things. We're in Austin for our KW Wealth Mastermind, and we did a ton of preparation for this, and I wanted to share with you. Oh, I got to grab my book. Cole tried to steal it from me. But our homework for the crew was Buy This, Not That by Sam Dojan, the financial samurai. I had read his articles and blog posts. I didn't know he had a book. I read this book about a year ago, and I actually believe this is required reading. We filmed a podcast. We kind of talked a little bit, Cole, last week about should you buy a home right now. I told a story about how I'm talking to my niece. I actually mailed her this book, and I said, if you read this book, let's have a conversation. But what Sam has done so brilliantly is he's taken all these concepts and he's built models for how we can think about the purchases we make in our lives, the different ways we're going to spend money throughout the course of our lives. How can we make the best decision? Because I believe if we have models, it allows us to make a better decision. And so one of the things you always see is you see people make an emotional decision, and then they absolutely go justify it with logic. That's kind of the thought process most people come to. I'll give you an example. We've all had that major car repair where our car broke down, whatever, the engine seized, and we took our car down the shop, and the car repair is $5,100. And what do we say? You know what? We probably should get a new car. Maybe let's go look at the used cars while we're getting the bid. Let's take a look, or let's look at a new car. And then all of a sudden, you're thinking about buying a 40 or 50 or whatever $1,000 car, all because you had a repair. And what's the argument you're making? You go and say, if I don't do this, it's going to continue to break down. And so we make that emotional decision, and then we start trying to create logical reasons in why we justify it. And so in Sam Dojan's book, he kind of gives you ways to think about it. For example, on a car purchase, he gives you, he believes, and again, this is if you want to set yourself up to have the highest probability, almost guaranteed, that you will have a retirement where you've got lots of passive income and you have zero stress in your life financially. He has a very specific way he wants you to do that. And we're going to cover a lot of that here today. But when it comes to a car, he wants you to spend less than 10% of your annual income on a car. So if you're making $100,000 a year, you got to buy a car for $10,000. I think that's hard to do. And it gives you ranges. His point is if you're spending 50% of your income on a car, it's probably not smart. You're taking up too much of your cash, so you won't have enough money to be able to go and invest and actually get ahead. And so he gives you just different models, and we'll roll through some of those today. As I was driving out there, we always talk a lot of books. I had some homework for we have a state of the company, and we have a meeting where all of our divisions of our company come in, and we meet about once every 45 days and go through how the company's performing. But there's always a book we're going to talk about. And this time it was 10X is easier than 2X. And there's so many times, and the whole idea just being, take whatever you're doing right now. If you want to double your income, it's very logical to go double the activities that you were doing. And by doing that, you're going to double your results. And so that's very simple. That's very linear. You do twice the work, you could likely make twice the money. However, if you want to make, it's actually not harder to make 10 times the money, but we got to ask different questions. And so it's going to be radically different activities that would do it. How could you go 10X? You got to think totally differently. So rather than doing, in other words, if you're doing sales and I make X amount of calls, as an example, in whatever business you're in, and I'm going to go make 100 calls a week, and I've been doing that forever. So now I'm going to start making 200 calls a week. I'm going to double my income. Another way to go 10X might be, like some ways to think about it. Number one, you could outsource your sales force and have someone else making the calls for you. You could hire someone to go hire salespeople and train them for you to have 10 salespeople. You could build possibly something online to where maybe there's a video sales page that's doing some of the selling for you, maybe getting your clients more qualified as they get to you. And now you could have someone further prospect further along in your pipeline before you bring them to a salesperson. So there's lots of different 10X principles you could apply inside each and every business. Again, if you're just joining us, if you've got questions, drop those in the chat. We will make sure we come back to those before we wrap here today. And so I want to start off on, hold on, before I get off topic here, Cole really wants me, our setup here is a little crazy. I've got 3 things of water holding a phone up here. And so if I move at all, it could get very, very tricky. So Sam Dojan's book, he starts off the book about what's your happiness equation. And he really defines happiness as it equals reality minus your expectations. And I think that's so true because all of us, when we go out there, we've all got an expectation of how things are going to be. And the expectation is sometimes what can lead to disappointment. Tony Robbins has this great story when you go to Unleash the Power Within. And he talks about that planes forever, right? We're flying over from here to Europe, and they never had Wi-Fi. And so all of a sudden the huge planes, all of a sudden they have Wi-Fi, people love it. And he was on the plane and it was the first time they had it, Wi-Fi goes out. Everyone is like, I can't believe this. It's unbelievable. And he's like, let's just think about this for a minute. First of all, 3 weeks ago, this didn't exist. Next, you're in a flying bird that's mechanical, flying across continents. In and of itself is magical, right? So you can see the magic in every moment, or you can have an expectation that I have to have it work. So the reality is it doesn't work. So I'm frustrated instead of just lowering your expectations. And so I love that he starts there. One, when I think about, he talks a lot about what should your net worth be as a percentage of your income? He gives you 2 ways to think about it. Number one, I would take the average. He just says your gross income and multiply that by 20. That is the income you would want to have when you retire. And he uses 65 years old. If you want to retire earlier, you would need to have 20 times your income earlier. And it's based on a normal withdrawal limit. He gives you 2 different options on retirement, which we'll talk about here in a second. So when you think about your net worth, a lot of people ask us all the time, how much money do I need in my net worth so I can live a really cool life at the end? When I'm done working, I want to have a really, really cool life. And so 20 times. So as an example, Cole, if you're making, we're going to take out our calculators. Here's a
24-year-old guy.
Here's a 24-year-old guy. I always use an example of Cole, like I'm speaking right to him. Hypothetically, Cole, not you, but a 24-year-old like you, same kind of haircut and everything. Right, but let's just say I'm making $150,000, and I've been doing that consistently. So I need a $3 million net worth. if I want to be able to retire comfortably if I'm making $150,000 a year. And normally that amount would be at 65 years old. I'd love to hear in the chat if you think that's the right number. In my mind, right, and that's based on average rates of return. So think about this. If you get an average rate of return, I'd call you, if we could put this money in treasury bills today. If you had $3 million and you put it in treasury bills today, Cole, you could make about $165,000 a year, which was more than you were making. That's the idea. So you wouldn't be touching your principal, and that's risk-free. Treasury bills, no state income tax. You're only paying federal income tax. So I would argue that's a great target. I don't think you're going to get 5%. A lot of the things that we do that I believe are very conservative. We have access to hard money, or you get access to great real estate investments. A lot of those with low leverage could yield probably an 8%-ish return with leverage. And so now if you take your same $3 million and you look at, you're making 240, so you're making more from your passive income than when you had your job. You were using your passive income to build up this nest egg, and you get to take advantage of it. The other way talks about your expenses. What does it cost you to actually live? And you go get 25 times that amount. And he really uses the range between those two numbers as where you want to land. So Cole, let's think if we're making $150,000 a year, our expenses are probably $100,000, 75-ish.
Well, who's our avatar?
Well, our avatar is someone making $150,000 a year. So times 25. So look, that would be if you took your $75,000 in expenses per year, assuming you're making $150,000. So you would want to be between $1.8 million and $3 million would be your target net worth. The reason I love when people put together things like this, number one, it's a check-in point. I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but now you've got two numbers. You've got 25 times your expenses. You get 20 times your net worth. It gives you something to drive at, and it gives you different milestones to go there. And let's see, Cole, if I can go show what that looks like. I can do that. There's a lot of technical, especially when we're on what I like to call our road studio. Cole, this is our share. So here's what that looks like, right? So what he's recommending, and then he tiers it up over time. So let's assume, Cole, you're 25 years old and you're making $150,000. Cole, can you see that on the Intetranet? Okay. So we want a net worth, Cole, right here. If you're making 150 grand at 25 years old, you need a net worth of 75,000. If you're making 100 grand, that is so that you're on track for 20 times your net worth. Would you scroll down to 60 to be on track for 3 million? But he kind of shows you the different age group, and he's showing, look at what's the multiple of your income, how many years you've been working. And he's kind of showing how most people's income climbs as they get older and they get in better positions at their work. And I just think it's a really good check-in point to think about, how does your net worth directly relate to where you're at today? So again, if you've got questions in the chat, type those in there. Cole, if you'll grab those from Instagram, pop those in there. I'm going to answer all those in a minute. And so when you're thinking about this, Ricardo Simlar was this guy who had these big companies. If you do a little research, Cole, I don't know what countries actually Ricardo Simlar, but he did this podcast with Tim Ferriss, and he wrote a book called The 7-Day Weekend. And the podcast with Tim Ferriss, I would highly recommend you go listen to it. It's just a different way to think about money and earning potential and net worth and happiness. And one of the ideas that Ricardo talks about in his book, The 7-Day Weekend, or I think it was on the interview with Tim Ferriss, he talks about that once your net worth gets to $12 million, once you get to 12 million, there's no additional happiness created. I take it a step further. I think there's a certain amount of income once you've had it a certain period of time and you've done a few of the financial things, like you've moved beyond where I've got my basic needs met. I've got the house that, relatively speaking, that I want. I've got a reasonable car. I've got some savings. The next round of your income is not going to create as much happiness as getting you to that point did. And he makes the same argument with your net worth. So as your net worth grows to a certain point, your happiness does grow in proportion. And I felt that as well. But he makes the argument that once you get past 12 million, there is no additional happiness created. And his argument is at that point at 12 million, you've got the primary residence you want. You likely have a second home if you want one. You're driving the car you want. You're probably flying first class most places. Some people can fly private at that level. And so you start thinking about, if I have more than that, when I go to 24 million in net worth, typically what his argument was is you're just seeing the houses get bigger, The boat, if you have a boat, it gets bigger. The things get bigger, but the initial happiness you got from having the second home or being able to travel more isn't the same. And so I think it's really cool to have these different metrics that you look at. And so he talks all about, I want to move to what he's talking about where net worth by age. I'm going to switch over here, Cole. I'm going to read from his book on the 2 different types of retirement, right? So this guides your strategy on what you want to do here. And so, hold on, I got it, Cole. I got this book just dog-eared everywhere, so it's going to take me a second to find it. I'll just throw out random things while I'm finding, because I got notes just throughout this book. He talks about that you want to have a 70-30 philosophy with your decision making. 70-30 philosophy states that you should seek to only make a decision. You make a decision only if you have at least a 70% probability of making an optimal decision. At the same time, you have the humility to understand that 30% of the time you will make a suboptimal decision and have to live with the consequences. His point here is that you have a 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio. That's an interesting way to think about how we make decisions. Make a decision only when you have a 70% probability of making an optimal decision. Cole. Now, I don't know if I'm able to find this on demand. Hang on. I'm trying to get there real. Hang on, Cole. I'm almost. This is
What's
don't worry about my method on note taking. I dog ear. I do all kinds of crazy things. So he talks in here about your net worth versus your passive income. And a lot of people ask me that question: am I focused on a passive income goal or a net worth goal? And while they're intertwined, most of the people I think reading Sam Dojan's book are investing in the stock market and growth stocks, and he weights all of these different investment vehicles, and he rates them from what's your access to it, how hard is it, what are the returns, what are the tax benefits. And so his point is that if you have a high enough net worth and you meet the targets that you're seeing on the screen here, even if you don't have passive income now, you could decide to move your stock portfolio into dividend stocks. You could have if you had land and real estate, you could convert that to cash flow in real estate. So I've always believed 100% of my net worth is invested. 100% of my net worth is invested in cash flowing assets because I want passive income, because it gets me freedom to do whatever I want so that I can hang out with all of you guys. Another thing he talks about, Cole, he talks about the financial samurai safe withdrawal rate. He's got this crazy FSWWR. But the idea here is any investment, right? And he talks about the safe withdrawal out of your retirement. But a lot of his methodology is that when you're looking at an investment, it should radically outperform the 10-year bond yield. And what he's looking at here is where the 10-year bonds, for those that think like that's super nerdy, the 10-year bond rate, it just gives you a really good benchmark to think about that money's totally secure and safe. So as of today, it's a little over 4%. If you do a 1-year treasury, you're talking 5.5%, 5.25-ish. So if I'm looking at a real estate investment, or I'm looking at any investment today, Cole, that's not going to pay significantly more than 5.5%, why would I do it? I can get a totally risk-free, totally passive. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to touch it. I can get 5.5% to do basically nothing. So if I'm going to go buy a piece of real estate, I'm going to do a hard money loan, or I'm going to do some investment and expose my money to risk, I've got to think about doing something. I've got to make 8, 9, 10, at least close to double probably the number that I'm going to get to do nothing, or it wouldn't make sense to take that risk. Another thing he talks about is calculating your risk tolerance. So when you put money in the market, and he analyzed all of the stock declines, Cole, every time the market went into a bear market since 1929, and he took the average bear market, the price decline was 33.63%. So 35%. So the worst case scenario, Cole, you put your money in the stock market, and he talks about that your max exposure is 35% in a bear market. So he says you should think about your exposure as it relates to your income. So he gives this example. Let's say you have $500,000 in the stock market and you're watching this here today, and you make $10,000 a month. To quantify your risk, you would take $500,000 times 35%. That's the amount it could drop if you went into a bear market tomorrow. Then, Cole, if you were making $10,000 a month, so $500,000 times 35%, what it could go down, you could lose $175,000. Okay. Now, if you lost $175,000 and you're making 10 grand a month, what he wants to figure out is how long does it take you to get your $175,000 back? In this example, it would take you 17.5 months. So early in our lives, we're probably willing to take, Cole, being a 25-year-old dude who's young and hip, you're probably willing to take more risk because you're like, hey, I've got more time to make it up.
Oh, yeah.
Me, even though I'm super young and hip too, I'm not willing. Like I'm probably going to want a lot lower number, so I'm going to have less exposure to the possibly the public markets, right? And so he just works through that multiple, and he gives you like now if you're he talks about extreme risk. If you're willing to take, if you're really young, Cole, you might be willing to take a risk multiple. That might take you as much. The extreme risk, he calls it 36 months to get to break even based on your exposure. So Cole, if you wanted to have $1 million in exposure in equities, right? At 35% of that's $350,000. It's going to take you about 35 months to break even. So do you want to take that risk? I think overwhelmingly when I see people invest in the stock market, what they're not thinking about is number one, it could drop. It could absolutely drop 35%. However, the bear markets aren't that long, right? I don't know if he covers the average length of time. 10 months. 10 months is the average length of time of a bear market. So you could drop by 35% over a 10-month period. And then I don't know if he studies how long it takes to get back to your initial number. But I think it's good to just have these different check-in points on things we're thinking about in our money. Next, he's talking about paying down debt. And he's got this model, if you want to look it up, called FSDAIR, DAIR, which stands for Financial Samurai Debt and Investment Ratio. So he looks at what the interest rate of the debt is, and he thinks about how should you allocate your dollars. So let's just, in the examples he gives, Cole, if any debt that you have that is over 10%, any debt, so credit cards, cars, anything that's over 10%, he says 100% of the extra dollars. Like if you were thinking about buying a home with $50,000, he would put the $50,000 towards the 10% debt. I would 100% agree with it, not for the logic that he has in the book, but Cole, when I coach people and I see that they have, typically I'll coach them when they'll have cash reserves, and they might have some debt that maybe it's hard money or something at 10%. My joke is always, why wouldn't you take the money that you have or thinking about investing and pay off the debt because you're guaranteed the return? In other words, when I bet on me, I know without question I'm going to make those payments. I have to. I know I'm going to do it. So that 10% has no risk, meaning I have to pay it. Versus when I go invest it in a new asset, I'm hoping to make 10%. That's like my target in hard money. We're lending at 12, 13%, and that's got risk. If I could get 10 to do nothing, I would do it. So he recommends, and even when you get down around 8%, he would allocate 80% of your investable dollars to paying it off, 20% to your investments. And if we want to drop that, is there a way to drop that link somewhere?
That's there.
Okay, you dropped it in. Yeah. Cool. So how to pay off debt. He also talks about paying down your home. So should you pay down your home today? If you've got a 3.5% interest rate, he uses the 10-year treasury, which is again at 4%, but the 1 month's at 5%. Should you pay down your 3.5% mortgage when you could get 5.5% pretty much risk-free? No, you would not do that today, but that could change over time. I'm one of those people that I believe in making an extra payment or two per year on your primary and shorten the horizon in which it takes to pay it off, and pick a number that's comfortable and doesn't put you in harm's way. Other thing he talks about in his book, he talks about the different asset to liability ratio. So Cole, how many assets should you have versus your liability in your 20s? What do you think that should be? So hypothetically, Cole, if you have liabilities, if you have assets of $100,000, we'll go, what should the liabilities be total? What do you think they should be?
10,000.
In a responsible way. He used a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 times assets. You have 50,000 liabilities, 100,000. Now let's go, by the time you get in your 60s though, Cole, it should be 10-to-1. So the same example we started with, if we're gonna have a $3 million net worth when we're 60, at that point, we'd only have $300,000 in debt, right? So it's just over time, what we're trying to do, most folks are gonna pay down debt over time because it just makes sense. It creates less risk and you're less likely, he talks a lot about the older you get, the less you're excited about firing it up and running through walls to go make your money again. Again, he's got lots of different models in here. I absolutely just love the way he thinks about the book. He talks here about a number of ways, the best financial moves in 2024. And I thought we'd go over some of those here today. Number one best financial move, which I agree with. He says, examine your asset allocation. I would just go through your investments. If you've got rental properties, go look at your cap rates. Go look at your cap rates off purchase. Probably in an upcoming live stream, we'll talk about some of the analysis and reflection that I did at the end of 2023 going into 2024. I always analyze all my investments. I look at the outstanding debt and I ask the question, are the assets that I'm invested in performing in the way that I want them to based on when I bought them and then based on today? And I have all these properties in Alabama. They've become a little noisy, but I bought them for $30,000 to $50,000 and now they've gone up more than double, almost triple. And I'm able to sell all those properties and I'm going to actually likely move those into a Starbucks. I'm not going to get in the coffee business. But what I want to do is have a 20-year triple net lease that I don't have to think about. It requires no management, and it's totally passive. I'll do a 1031 exchange, which saves me a bunch of taxes. And it's just another, as you're reflecting on this, your number one thing, go analyze your investments and see where is the opportunity inside of your investments. He also talks, again, his thing is all going to be investments that are widely, purchasable. They can be purchased online very easily by the average person. So most of asset allocation models you're going to see are largely based on the stock market in stocks and bonds. Cole, the 0 to 25-year-old, you can see this, right? You're going to be 100% stocks there, all the way to 30. Then you're going to go stocks and bonds and this. I actually don't really believe in this, but I think you should figure out what is your asset allocation mix. And I think that you should invest your money where you have an unfair advantage. And likely that's going to be where you work, or if you're an entrepreneur, that's going to be in your business or some asset class that's tied to your business where you can get an unfair advantage. And we've used the example of the dentist who wants to buy a machine. We use the example of, the contractor that needs a new piece of equipment that allows him to expand his business. For all of us, I am a real estate guy. I'm the biggest fan of real estate. Real estate has changed my life. And there's a variety of ways you can invest in real estate, which I think is often overlooked. I think people think about real estate, Cole, and they think, I got to buy a house. I buy a rental property. I buy a duplex. And there's so many other things. If you just stay on the asset side of real estate, I think getting into multifamily, the bigger the multifamily, the better. If it gets big enough, the economies of scale in it makes a lot more sense. But then we can go to triple net commercial buildings. We can talk about land leases. The flex warehouse space. There is so many different niches and investment types in the hard asset space that I think people just aren't thinking about. Then you go to what I'm going to call the debt space. You've got business debt. You could have first mortgages, second mortgages, seller finance debt. You could buy debt on the open market. So you're really, in this context, you're becoming your own bank. Debt is one of the places that I absolutely love to play. And I think there's this beautiful investment allocation where the old model was stocks and bonds. I'm real estate, where I'm just debt and assets, debt and real estate. That's how I think about it. And then you kind of go off to what Caitlin Mitchell would call, if she's watching here, the exotics, which I don't really know where that come from. And it kind of has the wrong tone to it. But the exotics, I'm going to call the exotics, get into like royalties, like natural gas royalties or oil royalties. Still deeded real estate. You can actually 1031. I've done this a number of times where I've taken a house and done a 1031 exchange into a natural gas royalty. And that I don't own the land. I own the mineral rights. Super weird. But I believe that alternatives, right? So again, what's your asset allocation? I don't know it's going to match here, but you should have a target that you're driving at. What percentage of my money is going into certain things and stuff, Cole? And why? Why is my money going into certain things and also stuff? Next, review your income and spending. This should be something you're doing all the time. We practice a concept called burn rate. I don't believe in budgeting. I think living cheap for cheap's sake sucks. No offense to Dave Ramsey's message. I think he does an amazing job. If you've got massive credit card debt, mass card debt, and you have tons and tons of consumer debt that's not tied to house, you should go watch all Dave Ramsey stuff. Watch all his podcasts. He is the guy to help you get out of debt. Now, once you get out of debt, I think you need to literally quit listening to him and forget everything he said and just don't get back into debt and go find, because he's not going to teach you actually how to be wealthy. He made all of his money teaching poor people how to get out of debt, not how to grow assets and manage a portfolio, Cole. And everything what's different about us, everything we talk to you about and teach, we actually do in real time. I don't play an investor on TV. I don't fake like I run businesses, and I don't have to talk about what I think those that do. I actually get to do the doing, right? I own assets and I have companies that I run. But so we've got to have our burn rate. Instead of being, I know one thing I know about every single person watching this, the tens of thousands of people that are watching it at home, what I know about them is that you're likely very comfortable spending whatever you're spending now. And for me, what I was able to do is figure out what you think you're spending, go through your bills and make a guess. What are you spending all in every single month? We call this your burn rate. This includes your rent or your mortgage, if you got a car payment, groceries, vacation, brake repairs, all the random things that happen in your life. What does it cost you to live every single month? I'm going to call that number $6,000, Cole. If that number is $6,000, what you want to do is set up a separate checking account every month from your one checking account that's got more than $6,000 in it. You're going to transfer $6,000 to the other account. On the first of the month, you're going to pay all the bills out of that account. And we're going to run a little experiment called at the end of the month, will I have more money or more month? And if you have more month left, you just have to realize that your burn rate is not $6,000. It might be higher. The next month, if you say it's $7,000, you have to make the decision that that is it. Put all the pressure from there on growing your income and hold in line at $7,000. Everything you make over that amount should be invested or used to pay down debt. And that is how you get ahead. It is called spending creep, I believe is the term. That if your income rises, your spending will naturally creep up to match your income. And it is one of the threats. I see people all the time that believe they'll start saving only when they make more money. And it's life's greatest lie, Cole. It's absolutely not true. I don't care how little money you make. If you're watching this, if you're not able to save $50 a month, making more money won't solve your problem. The only financial awareness you currently have is I spend 100% of what I make and I quit spending when I reach zero. And that model doesn't work. Ask me how I know, because I tried it and it doesn't work. And so you've got to realize there's a certain amount of money and everything beyond that, I'm going to go invest. And you're going to do that for a long period of time and it will absolutely get you ahead. But you do that, Cole, by reviewing your income and spending and knowing exactly where you're spending your money. For all of us, we've got to get closer to our money. Then he says, if the amount of money you're saving every month, Cole, doesn't hurt, if it doesn't hurt, you're not saving enough. So Cole, does it hurt the way you're saving money? Cole, you're a pretty frugal guy. I have to admit, traveling on the road with you, I would call you fiscally conscious. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you don't go out. I don't see you go out. Well, a lot of your 24-year-old hip kids would disagree with the way you. Well, they would go have a stupid car. They would have no money. They would be in credit card debt, and they'd be overspending. Like you told me, what do you spend a week on food? Because I don't even know if this is real. This is a non-verified number, by the way. What did you say you spend a week on food, Cole?
I'd say $50 to $100.
$50 to $100, and you buy a bag of Trader Joe's chicken. No, this is what's your method for the 24-year-old?
You go to Trader Joe's.
Go to Trader Joe's. Get the chicken. It's
2 meals, $4 each.
And these are like a rotisserie chicken in the front, or what is this?
Like frozen,
you're getting frozen bags of chicken.
And then you get a bag of rice.
Bag of rice.
That's the boom.
Teriyaki sauce.
And then you can mix the sauce however you want.
I know it's going to hit all the health components of the 4 food groups, but I like it. But I think the point is, what I love about what you're doing, Cole, is that you're saving money, you're fiscally conscious, you're boosting your savings, and saving money is how you get ahead. Cash is always king. Number 4, if you're not an entrepreneur, get your resume up to date. I 100% think that's critical. If you're an entrepreneur, my action here would be, what skill are you going to develop in 2024? The technology is coming on hotter and faster than ever. And I thought AI was kind of complete garbage and just something people were talking about a lot and not going to be a really big deal. And I went to a presentation recently with someone who had a huge exit in their company, and like $150 million they made when they sold their business. And they talked about all the changes. And I had a question in the room, like, can you give me 3 real-time examples in your life of how you're actually using AI? Because I can't think of any. And he gave 3 of the most incredible examples ever. So I've done it. I would encourage everyone to go get ChatGPT 4 on your phone. You do need to pay the $20. You need to figure out what's going on and how you can use it, because it is going to be part of the future. So my thought on number 4, if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a resume, what skills are you going to develop in 2024? If you're lost, go spend some time applying on ChatGPT 4. And how can it make you or your employees more effective? Right? There are ways that technology can streamline it, and you're going to see really, really cool things that happen in the future. Number 5, protect your family. He's largely talking about insurance here, but go run through your medical insurance, your property and casualty insurance, your auto insurance. One of the things we teach at our workshop is go out and if you're not shopping your insurance with a real estate broker, I think you're making a mistake. Every single year, we take all of my policies, we go out, we shop them all and see if we can get the same or better coverage for less money. It makes a tremendous amount of sense. And it's how you should be thinking about your money. Number 6, super important. Prepare your will, update your will, get a trust, get your things in order. Every single person needs 3 documents. You need a will, healthcare power of attorney, medical power of attorney. If you don't have those 3, you can create a mess that you might leave behind for others that you really, really care about. So don't do that. It's inexpensive. I think there's places online, Cole, you can actually get it done for extremely low amounts of money / possibly even free today on the will option. Healthcare chat GPT your will and just say, what do you think it should be? What do you think I should have in assets and who do you think it should go to? It'd be a really cool game. Get smarter with your taxes. We spend a ton of time talking about taxes. Taxes are your biggest expense. And the biggest difference between those that pay less tax and those that don't are, number one, those that realize that they have to put their mask on first and actually care. Again, we teach this for a living. And one of the things that someone will say, well, my CPA, they're not paying attention. I'm saying, well, they pay the same if they're the greatest CPA of our time and save you $100,000 on your tax bill, or they don't save you anything. They make the exact same amount of money. They're not compensated on how much they save you. And so in other words, you should work with really smart people that you enjoy, but you should be asked the question, I'm paying a lot of tax. Can you come up with 5 strategies that I could use this year? I'll throw out a couple here. We won't have time to get into them, but if you don't think about like the Augusta rule,
I'll put a link in the chat.
I'll put a link. Actually, we'll drop a link in the chat with our top, 5 tax strats? Huge. Top 5 tax strategies that I think entrepreneurs typically save about $10,000 per year. That's a big commitment. Is that your, or that's just
somewhere out there?
Don't worry about that, guys. That's just a bus running into a small building down there. It's totally fine. We're totally safe. Don't panic. All right, number 8, use a free analyzer on all your investment accounts. If you do have an investment account, fees are one of your biggest expenses. If you can understand fees, ETFs have the lowest fees. I don't believe in the stock market, Cole, but if I was going to invest in the stock market, how would I do it? I'm a big simple path to wealth guy. So if you want to drop that book in there, Cole, The Simple Path to Wealth, the whole idea being basically you buy the Vanguard Total Market Index. You're going to buy the same amount of that every single month indefinitely and over a very long period of time. It always works. Let me see, Vanguard Total Market Index Fund. Can I pull this up in real time, Cole? What say you? Is that possible? Do I have
screen share it?
Do I have those kind of skills? Cole's obviously being very crappy, already yelling at me, and Cole, I can't help the fact that it takes a second to upload. Okay, I can't.
Boom.
You don't need to talk to me, Cole, like I'm a terrible employee. But let's just pretend we could go back. We fly our plane back 10 years ago and our time machine, Cole, and you could go back to 2013. You could have bought the total market index for $35. You're making a 1.43% yield dividend, meaning if you got 100 grand every year, they're going to throw you $1,400. You could use to buy extra stock. You could put it in your pocket. You could do whatever. That's not the best yield ever. But yeah, 100, you would have started. I'm not going to be able to do the math with the dividend yield, but with 35 grand, what is it? All roughly little over 3 times. So you turned 100 grand into 300,000 over a 10-year period. So over a 5-year period, they've done the math for you, Cole. It's up 50%. Not terrible. So 10% per year. Pretty solid. Now, look, if you go, I wonder if it goes far enough to the crash. How long has it been around? Yeah, but even look, this is a great example. So at the zenith, the high water mark prior to the crash, you got $37 a share. And then at the very bottom, you went to 20. So you would have gone down by almost 50%. And it would have taken you to about 2011 to get back. So you would have gone a 4-year period. But that's the beauty of longevity, Cole. If you have time, the market will naturally rise over time, partly due to inflation, partly due to other things. But the total market index is basically just taking the entire stock market. You're just betting on America being a thing over the long haul. The only drop here, we obviously know what happened here. A little COVID, Cole, that happened. COVID's real. It's not a made-up thing. All right, Cole, we're going to switch over to Did I finish my net worth target? I finished that, Cole. Oh boy, I just blew up my entire screen. No, I got it back.
Boy.
Oh,
Boy.
we're good. We're good. I'm going to go back here. Let's see if there's any of these other points that he makes for. That was it. That was the end of the best financial moves for 2024. We're going to take your questions now. So if you've got a question, throw those in the chat. We will answer all of them now. And I'm going to start at the very top. Cole, your job is to make sure that I don't miss a single one. Caitlin says that's aggressive. I'm assuming that's talking about Cole and cheese. That's too personal. It's totally fine. Cole has skin like I do, like a rhinoceros. You can't hurt his feelings. What would be my first step in 10Xing? I would ask a question that if I had to 10X my business, so if I'm making $100,000 in 2023 and I have to make $1 million, my family's going to be abducted by aliens. And the only way I get them back at the end of 2024, Cole, is I have to bring in $1 million. I have to do it. So immediately I'm already going, well, I'm not just going to do what I was already doing because I already know that that's 100,000. So if I was I'm going to be a roofer. Oh, you throw a business out. Cole, give me business. Give me business. Any business.
You work at an aquarium.
Okay, hardest one possible. If I work at an aquarium, I get a 10X my income.
You sell aquariums door to door.
Okay, I sell aquarium. I'm giving you something like, okay, it's hard to 10X your income as an employee. I sell aquariums door to door. Cool. So I'm like, all right, I'm door knocking. Now I might think, are there a certain amount of customers that are more likely to buy aquariums than others? Is that neighborhood specific? Is that age specific? And I would go look at all the customers I currently had, and I would go build what I'm going to call an avatar. I'm going to look at, were they homeowners? Were they not homeowners? Did they live in a certain area? Was there a certain age to them? Or was there any type of common theme so I could market more to them? I would go find the number one player in my space, and I would see how they're doing it. Then I might ask the question, all right, I know I can door knock 20 doors a day. As a guy who's done a little door knocking, Cole, if you're driving to random houses, that's probably a significant number. Then I would get someone immediately writing with me, and I would see if they could how quickly I could get them to 70 to 80% of the results I was currently getting. Once I did that, I might hire 10 people to do the exact same thing, 10X, right? So I'm not going to do the same thing. I'm going to hire those folks. That's one way to do it. Then I might say, what else could I sell when someone buys an aquarium? Do they also have some other thing? They also have maybe reptiles. Maybe they also have like a turtle.
Reptiles.
Maybe they also have a turtle.
They love it.
They have pet turtles. So now guess what I'm going to do? Sell them a turtle habitat and a thing. I'm going to upsell them to something else. Now I'm going to ask a different question. What if I want to be I don't want to be in the average space of aquarium sales. I don't want to do the small tanks. I'm not going to be a guy doing 30 gallons. I'm a 300-gallon guy. And so in doing that, I'm going to sell bigger things to my customers. And so I would just look at, could you sell more units to more salespeople? Could you sell, do you want me to stop sharing the back? Because it's like, that's not exactly helpful, is it? So could I sell more units? Could I sell bigger units? Could I sell my current customers more things and do it that way? So I would start asking those different questions. Next thing I would do is I would go read the book and go through this because it gives you really good insight on things that you might think about it in different ways to think about that. Does retirement change based on location? He does talk about that in the book. You really need to go look at your city. Different cities are going to have lots of different costs at retirement, largely based on home values because you got property taxes, your insurance is higher on a more expensive property. Also, more affluent areas, if the property values are higher, typically those areas cost more for all the other things that you do. If you live in an area where all the homes are, say, $300,000, and you took all the costs to go out to eat, to get your hair cut, to do all those things, Cole, and then I bet if you went in an area where there's $1 million average sales price and you go eat and you go get your hair cut and those things, I think you're going to find that those costs for the average things you consume are going to be totally different numbers. Yes. Oh, you did get it. Ricardo Similar is from Brazil. Big manufacturing entrepreneur in Brazil. Caitlin, love that interview. It is awesome. Brother Brent Downing says he can't make it to Austin, but it's good to see you. It's always good to see you, dude. I hope to see you soon. What job would I recommend to make $150,000 at 25? At 25 years old, most of the jobs I can think of off the top of my head are always going to be sales jobs. The first thing you should do is go do a behavioral assessment. I would recommend you go take the Abelson disc. Cole, if you want to drop that in. If you're 25 years old, I would go take the Abelson disc and I would get a personality profile on what my behavioral style is. This doesn't mean that you can't do other things against your behavioral style. What it does say is that you probably won't like it. So there are certain behaviors that are better suited to salespeople. It doesn't mean you can't over horsepower and have so much drive that you're just willing to do whatever. But overall, right, salespeople, there's the D, the I, the S, and the C. D is your drive. Think it's just raw horsepower. And it's measured on a score from like usually 0 to 100. Then you've got the I. Those are your people skills, your interpersonal skills. That's the I. The S is steady, stable, right? Do you value consistency, very stable work environment? The work you get's consistent. Hours are consistent. Things are consistent. And lastly, C, think of it as organizational skills. Someone who's a 10 on the organizational chart as a C, which would be like Melissa in my office. Every day she gets in there, she's got the most crazy organized work environment. She writes this little note card out with the 10 things she's going to do in a certain order. And I cannot help myself. I love going into her office. And when she walks out and taking that note card into my office and just watching her explode inside as a human being with anger is one of the funnest things I get to do. But she is all drive, all organization. It's amazing. But her people skills are lower, right? She's an introvert. So she would rather be, hey, tell me what I'm going to be done. I'll run through walls. Tell me the work. I want to organize it all. Leave me alone. Let me organize it all. Where I am all horsepower all the time. And I've got some people skills, not as high as people think. My eye's kind of right in the middle. I am somewhat, Cole, you wouldn't know this, but I'm somewhat of an introvert. I had to go become a public speaker and do these things, and it was hard for me, and I had to kind of break out of my shell. It was not a natural. I'm not an extrovert by choice. So how would I make $150,000? Number one, if I had a right behavioral assessment, I would go into sales. So if you got a D that's above 50% and I above 50%, sales is absolutely for you. There's other variables in there, so don't get hung up in that, but you may want to go that route. The other way I would do it is don't be afraid to jump into a side hustle. So if you're young and watching this, I waited tables for a very long period of time. I was an entrepreneur by day in my landscaping pool business, Cole, and I'd come in Arizona in the summer covered in sweat and disgust, and I would spray my body down with Axe, and then I would go in there and wait tables all night. I can only imagine, like, man, this guy just smells like 4 bottles of Axe exploded in his car. That's because it wasn't 4 bottles, but yes. Do I carry any debt? I do. My portfolio is probably, the debt portion is pretty low. Lately, we had some mortgages that were 5 to 7 year mortgages that were maturing in the next few years that were written like at 3.5 to 4%. So I really, it was before I read the book, but I made the decision that a lot of my investable dollars was going to go just to drive that debt down as opposed to buying more assets, just so because those rates were going to adjust from say 3 or 4% to 8. And it just made sense. If I could make an 8% return, betting on myself, that's a really, really good place to be. Cole has the gift of time, says Maps Coach Gabby. By the way, I love that as a fellow coach and as a peer in the coaching world, Gabby. I don't know why, Gabby, you should have just came in. If you want to come to Cole can text you my room. We don't want to throw that on the live stream. But if you would, I think you're in this hotel right now. If you want to come in and say hi, you can. You're welcome. I was going to text you a minute anyway to go hang out. But Maps Coach Gabby, yes, Cole has his time. Gabby says, I don't run a fake business. I own stuff and things. What's up, Jack? I love what you're doing on the investment side. I know you're hammering the investment side. Tell your mom I said, what's up? Tiffany, if someone has a few million in assets, how would you suggest getting started making better investments and creating passive income? First thing I would do, I would start thinking about the asset class that I wanted to invest in, and I would get clear on that. And then I would start reading those books. And the first investment I would make is your education. I would figure out where are the courses. Number one, start with the books. As you get there, you might find someone's got a really good course online, and you're going to find the tribe or the guru out there that's real and legit for that space. And the first thing I would do, especially before I would invest a few $1 million, I would 100% spend $10,000 or $20,000 over the course of a year, maybe 2, and I would invest it here. I have done it time and time again, and the best investments I've ever made are in myself. So I would go there, and then depending on the vehicle you pick, let's say the most recent kind of asset class that I went all in on, The prior one was debt. So seller finance debt, how to buy a home and sell it with seller financing, where I carry the 30-year mortgage, how to go out in the marketplace and buy 30-year debt from these kind of institutions that are selling off tapes, how to market directly to people that own those notes and buy them. And so I went and found the two experts in that space. One of them, Eddie Speed. He's got a program called Note School. Love Eddie Speed. And I went to him and spent a day in his office and got educated. I went through his full training program. And so I went through that. I think I spent around $40,000-ish there. And at the end of it, now I'm making millions and millions of dollars from notes, but I did the education first. I see so many people that have the money to invest and they want to say, what should I buy? I have a bunch of money. I want to go invest in. I'm like, well, all that's going to happen is maybe by luck you win, but over time you're going to lose because you're not educated. You have to have an unfair advantage. So go invest in yourself. That's where I would start. But I am a fan also, depending on Tiffany, depending on your income, if you're an entrepreneur, there might be certain asset classes that also have tax benefits that you want to look at. As an example, if you've got a really high income and you're in real estate, there are some benefits to, if real estate happens to be your play, which it likely will, certain types of real estate have more depreciation than others. So you may want to think about depreciation as your strategy. Drew Smith, if your primary residence value doubled in 3 years and you could make $500K after tax, after everything, just net, because I'm assuming you're married and you're going to use your exemption and not pay up to $500,000 in tax, but your interest rate is 2.25. I'd be curious if that's a 30-year fix. I'm going to guess that it is. Question there is just, do you want to be in your house? Like, do you see yourself in your home for a really long period of time? If you want to be in that home for 5 to 10 years, I don't know. If you've got, is the home too much? Like, you're like, hey, maybe there's something else that's driving it where, Drew, and you can type this in the chat if you want, but like maybe it's a bigger house than what you need. So I don't know about your situation. Like, hey, I had, we were a family of 5 and then my kids are out of the house now. And so we've got all this space and it's a lot to maintain. If there's something else driving it, but if you're happy with your house, I'm one of those fans of, you've got a really low debt. It sounds like your house, I'm guessing your mortgage is relatively small based on that it doubled. So if you love where you're at, always the question is, where are you going to go? Would you think about the myth that I always hear is, I'm going to sell here now, I'm going to rent for a period of time, then I'm going to buy back in. Every person that I've ever seen said, I'm going to sell at the top of the market, I'm going to rent for a period of time, and then I'm going to rebuy. Every time I've seen that, Cole, only to sell their house, have the market skyrocket, and then they go buy another house, and then interest rates go up, and they're in a much worse position. So I actually I'll give you a different answer, Drew. I actually don't try to make money intentionally on my primary residence. I'm buying the home that I want to live in the area I want to live in. Yes, real estate goes up over time and all of those things, but I'm not looking at my primary residence as an investment vehicle because I do weird stuff to it. Like, I just put a pickleball court in my house, and the odds are that's going to return 0 economic value unless I find pickleball pro Bob when I'm going to go sell my home and he wants a half-court basketball gym, this whole kid house that was just built out for my kids. I'm probably not going to realize all that economic value, but I did it for different things. I did it for experience points. I wanted to have a cool house. I wanted to have the house where my wife and I wanted to have the house where all the kids came over to. And so my primary residence isn't where I'm looking to go out and make money. My investments, though, I'm very specific, right? For your primary residence, you want to be a certain area, a certain countertop, certain floor plan, all those things. When I buy an investment, Cole, I go into a neighborhood, I'm like, I want to buy every home in this neighborhood that's 3-bed, 2-bath, between 1,200 to 1,800 square feet. That's 3 to 4 bedrooms. It's built in hopefully block construction, 1980, 1990. That rents at this, and that's what I want to buy. And I don't really care about the floor plan. 1 bedroom, small, doesn't matter. It's an investment. I want to buy it all at the right price. And so there's just such a different philosophy. So I don't try to go and make money on my primary residence. So with that, Cole, we're at the end of our 7th live stream. I can't imagine how excited we're going to be when we hit 700.
Next week, new segment.
Next week's a new segment called Should I Buy It? And we want people to come in and bring something you're thinking about buying. It could be any purchase. Probably the purchase needs to be $10,000 or more, maybe.
Or less.
It could be. We're not asking, should you buy a new pair of sunglasses?
What if it's like a purse?
Okay, there you go. So take it back. Actually, it could be any item that you're thinking about buying that's several $100s or more. Okay. But if you think about buying a car, if you want to come in there, jump on. We're going to do this as a part of every live stream. Should I buy it? With that, Cole, we're going to wrap up. It's Be Wealthy Brett. Anything else, Cole, we need to do today?
That was great.
If you like today, subscribe to our channel. Don't miss out on what we're doing. We come here every Tuesday, 4 o'clock Mountain.
Yep, and podcast.
And our podcast launches. Are you second or third? Second. We're launching. Guess what? 5 episodes are coming out. Don't miss it. See you guys. What? That's what I said, Cole. See you back here next week. See you 4 o'clock.